Secretary Lutnick, why did you lie to the New York Post about your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, I did hear that. Please don't repeat your gracious offer to speak behind closed doors, not under oath, without the ability of this committee to question you. The American people wants to know, why did you lie about your relationship with Epstein?
The House Oversight Committee and I have agreed
We
that
are
we will
the
spend
appropriate
the time
reclaiming my
together.
time. I do not accept that answer. We've heard that one. We are our own committee. We have our own reason to test your credibility and veracity. Please answer the question. Why did you lie to the Post?
Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary of the United States, one of the most powerful men in Washington right now, billionaire, Cantor Fitzgerald CEO, close confidant of President Trump, on the surface, a polished, untouchable figure of the American establishment. But beneath that surface, a trail of lies, a private island visit, a secret business deal, and emails that stretch all the way to 2018. That's not ancient history. That's yesterday. And the woman who stood up to expose all of it? Congresswoman Madeline Dean. She didn't come to that hearing to play politics. She came straight from a breakfast with survivors, real survivors of rape, abuse, and trafficking, who looked her in the eyes and asked for one thing: accountability.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Mang, Ranking Member DeLauro. Good afternoon, Secretary Lutnick. Last Tuesday, I had the chance to attend a breakfast for RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. It was their Congressional Day of Action. Survivors came to me, told me their horrific stories, and the survivors I spoke with had one message: they're seeking accountability and justice. After speaking with the survivors, I again went to the Department of Justice to review the unredacted Epstein files, to seek accountability and justice for the victims, the more than 1,000 victims and survivors.
So she walked into that room, unredacted files in hand, and she lit the whole thing on fire. Here's where the story gets deeply disturbing. Back in October, Lutnick told the New York Post a very clean, very convenient version of events. He said the last time he saw Jeffrey Epstein was in 2005 fires. He claimed that after touring Epstein's mansion, conveniently located right next door to his own home, he and his wife were so revolted, so disgusted, that they made a vow never to return. Sounds noble, right? Except that story completely fell apart the moment the Epstein files dropped. Because buried inside those documents was proof that Howard Lutnick visited Epstein's private island in 2012. Not 2005, 2012, 4 years after, Epstein had already pleaded guilty to soliciting a minor for prostitution. 4 years after he was registered as a sex offender. And Lutnick didn't go alone. He brought his wife, he brought his kids, he brought his nannies to a predator's island, to the home of a convicted sex criminal.
Let's start with your relationship with sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. In October, you told the New York Post with colorful narration that the last time you saw Jeffrey Epstein was in 2005 when you took a tour of his house, which happened to be right next door to yours. You claim you and your wife were so grossed out by this disgusting person, you swore you would never go back. But when the Epstein files came out, it turned out that was a lie. You were forced to admit that you had visited Epstein's private island in 2012, 4 years after Epstein pled guilty soliciting a minor for prostitution and was labeled a sex offender.
So Congresswoman Dean asked him directly, in front of the entire country, under the lights of a congressional hearing, live on camera. Why did you lie to the New York Post about your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? And what did Lutnick do? He offered to speak behind closed doors, not under oath. Away from the cameras, away from the committee.
You brought along your wife, your kids, your nannies to the predator's island. Incredibly poor judgment. But that even wasn't the whole truth. It turns out that 5 days after visiting his island, you and Epstein signed a business deal together as co-investors in a digital advertising company, Adfin. An email showed you stayed in touch with Epstein about this deal as late as 2018.
He was forced to admit it publicly, but here's the part that will make your jaw drop. Even that wasn't the whole truth. Because stay with me here, 5 days after that island visit, Lutnick and Epstein signed a business deal together, a co-investment in a digital advertising company called Adfin, and email records show the two men stayed in contact about that deal as late as 2018 town. 13 years of documented connection, and he told the press it ended in 2005.
Oh, I did hear that. Please don't repeat your gracious offer to speak behind closed doors, not under oath, without the ability of this committee to question you. The American people wants to know, why did you lie about your relationship with Epstein?
The House Oversight Committee and I have agreed
We
that
are
we will
the
spend
appropriate-
the time
Reclaiming my
together.
time, I do not accept that answer. We've heard that one. We are our own committee. We have our own reason to test your credibility and veracity. Please answer the question, why did you lie to the Post?
Dean didn't blink. She shut it down immediately. She reclaimed her time, and she said something that is already echoing across the internet. The cover-up continues. She pushed harder. She asked whether President Trump was personally concerned about Lutnick's ongoing relationship with Epstein, a relationship documented as recently as 2018. Lutnick refused, said he doesn't discuss private presidential conversations. Dean then dropped a pointed reminder. Trump had just fired 3 female cabinet secretaries, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Lori Chavez DeRemer, and she said it plainly. If the president had even a shred of concern about accountability for Epstein's enablers, Lutnick's name should be next on that list.
I reclaim the time. Let the record reflect you're dodging the question. The cover-up continues. You know what? In your conversations with the president, is the president concerned about your continued relationship that you had with Mr. Epstein as recently as 2018?
I am not going to discuss conversations I have with the president. That is not something I'm going to do.
If you remember in that interview, you said you would never be in the room with him socially, for business, or even philanthropy. President Trump has just fired 3 cabinet secretaries, 3 women, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Lori Chavez DeRemer. If President Trump has even a shred of concern about accountability for Jeffrey Epstein's enablers, he would fire you too.
The room went silent, but Dean wasn't finished, not even close, because the Epstein questions were only half of what she came to expose. She pivoted to something that may actually be even more explosive: the allegation that Lutnick's own family has been financially profiting from the very tariff policies he has been publicly championing. The claim that while Lutnick stood at podiums cheerleading the highest tariffs imposed on Americans since the Great Depression, tariffs that legal experts argue were imposed without constitutional authority, his sons were allegedly purchasing tariff refund rights at pennies on the dollar, positioning themselves to collect potentially hundreds of millions in federal taxpayer money.
I'm going to
with your
switch
House
topics.
colleagues.
Let me switch topics. A different and equally disturbing issue: how your family is profiting from your work as Commerce Secretary. Let's start with tariffs. You and the president illegally imposed the highest tariffs on the American people since the Great Depression. And your sons figured out how to profit from the high tariffs by buying up refund rights, pennies on the dollar, just as you were out there cheerleading the tariffs. As a result, federal taxpayers like my constituents may now owe your family tens of or hundreds of millions of dollars. I wonder if President Trump is concerned about you and your family profiteering off the illegal tariffs.
Lutnick denied it, called it false, pointed to a report he claimed exonerated his firm. Dean pointed right back and noted it was his sons doing the profiting, not the firm directly. The chairman cut her off before she could finish.
It's just
your
not
sons.
true.
It's your sons. The
No,
reporting
his
is
old
your
firm and my sons. It is
Mr.
not
Mr. Chairman,
true.
reclaiming
and you
my
know
time.
it's not true.
I have
it's
asked
not true.
Mr. Chairman, reclaiming about 20 seconds. I hope you recognize how fundamentally wrong and corrupt this is. I hope you take accountability and have the decency to resign before you are fired.
The hearing ended, the cameras kept rolling, and the questions remained unanswered. As of right now, Lutnick remains in his cabinet position. No resignation. No formal investigation announced. The Adfin business deal has not been fully explained. The full scope of financial ties between Lutnick and Epstein beyond that one company, still unknown. The emails from 2018, not fully released to the public. More than 1,000 Epstein victims are still waiting for names, still waiting for accountability, still waiting for the people who enabled a predator to face real consequences. And the most powerful men in Washington keep sitting in those hearings, dodging questions, running out the clock, and walking out of those rooms untouched. So here's the question that should be keeping all of us up at night. At what point does proximity to a predator become complicity? And who in Washington actually has the power or the courage to draw that line? Drop your thoughts below. This story is far from over. Subscribe to Viral Spills right now, because the names, the files, and the cover-ups that are still buried, we're coming for all of it.